Hello and welcome back to In the Business. In this episode, we spoke to Andrew Hayward. So Andrew has set up a business called Hayward Miller, and he's also the Regional Director of Transitions Technologies for the UK. So it's a very interesting episode and we hope you enjoy it.
Andrew, you built a 40 plus year career in sales and business development. You've started your own company and you now lead a global tech firm's UK expansion. For someone that's starting out, how did your journey begin? Can you take us back to your school years and start from there?
Yeah, I was quite lucky because I went to school in Wiltshire, that's the accent, in the UK. And then my father's work role took him out to Africa. So I lived in Africa for a couple of years, went to school there. I was lucky enough to get in a very good school, learned more than I realized at the time. It was hard going. Came back to the UK, finished my schooling in the UK, and got myself a moped. Couldn't legally ride it on the road, and I was a law-abiding citizen, so it stayed in the garage. And I thought, this is boring, so I put it on the drive and took it apart to see how it worked. And the guy up the road, he worked for an engineering company, saw me doing this, said to my dad, has Andrew got any jobs yet? What's he looking to do? Because they're looking for apprentices. So I ended up working for a large family firm in aerospace and defense. They were bought out by Honeywell. And I finished my apprenticeship with Honeywell, ended up working in research and development and tool making. And then I was promoted as head of the computer data department at the age of 26. And it was a bit surreal because I knew nothing about computers other than programming them for machinery. But that was it. I learned a valuable lesson there on how businesses ran. I had a team of people to look after as well. So that was all a new experience for me. And then Honeywell decided to pull out of the aerospace and defense market at that time. And I thought, well, I've got a young family, mortgage. I need to make sure my job's secure. And I ended up working for a company called Sunstrand. And this was in procurement. This was automotive procurement, because part of my journey took me into the purchasing department within Honeywell, and I quite enjoyed it, and I fancied doing something a bit different. This was low value, high volume work, but at the time my signature could sign off orders to the value of 7.5 million. So, they were expecting high turnover of produce. I worked there for a couple of years, really enjoyed it. But the traveling every day, because it was quite a distance away from home, was a bind. So I looked for something a little bit more local. Ended up working for Westinghouse. They were a railway company. In their heyday, they'd have 7,500 people working there, and it was in my hometown. Yeah. The business itself was split into various sections. As it happens, my brother had worked there, my mother had worked there. In fact, she was working there when I joined, but she was working for a different part. She was working for Signals. My father had worked for Signals in his time. And I was working for Brake. This is all the braking systems to go on trains, but it expanded out to platform doors, train doors, and much more. And I became a purchasing officer. So I used all my engineering skills to help me understand what it was I was buying and then negotiate with people to get the cost point in the right space for Westinghouse. So I was there 5.5 years. Again, learned a lot, lots of valuable insight in how businesses run. I was then poached by one of my suppliers, a gentleman that ran an engineering company. He also had a screen printing company and needed a works manager. And he thought I'd be the right person for the job. I didn't even really understand what the job was, I have to say. But I ended up working for him for the next 5 years and ended up being the sales and marketing manager then a director. Then he offered me the role of MD. All good. Unfortunately, that gentleman, all he had to do was give me a little bit of a pay rise. He'd forgot. He's promoted me, but not paid me more money. And I spoke to him and he said, "Don't worry, I'll look after you." 6 months later, nothing had happened. So I started looking for a job. And in those days, this was the late 90s. So I'd be looking in a newspaper for jobs back at that time.
Yeah.
I applied for one. I got it, and it was to do business development for a group of engineering companies down on the south coast. They were based mainly in Weymouth. And that was a fantastic job. Brilliant people, lovely space, very good company. You know, when you get the most unlikely people all coming together at once and creating something that you would never have, you could not have planned to have that group of people in that space and have the results that we had, but
Yeah.
it happened. And again, I learned a lot. I didn't have the responsibilities that I had had before in looking after other people's businesses. And that in itself was great because I was my own agent. They literally gave me a free rein and I just had to report in once a month. But we were successful. We went from 6.9 million to 25 million over 6.5 years. So everything kept growing. What I didn't tell you about the previous company, the screen print one, is that I was asked quite close to the beginning to have a look at a flexible circuit, these flexible membranes. And the MD said, BT are using them on the home highway, but they keep failing. You're an engineer, see what you can do. And what I worked out after a lot of research was that whoever was making them wasn't finishing the production process correctly. They had to go through a baking process and they were just air drying them, which meant that as soon as you bent the flexible circuit, it cracked and then you had a break in the circuit. So I fixed that particular problem. We started producing these and I said to the owner of the business, you could start a company doing this because we're more than capable. We have all the resource around us. We lack the expertise and we lack the test equipment. And he said, how much do you need to invest? And I said, £8,500. He said, just do it. And he said, oh, by the way, I've started another company and we're going to put everything to do with the membrane side under this other company. So within 2 years, we were turning over 2.25 million and making 43% net profit.
Amazing.
And that's an absolute steal. And that's when I got promoted to sales and marketing director. Okay. And hence the reason I felt a little aggrieved about not getting a pay rise. Now bear in mind, at that time, I was reasonably happy with the money, but I thought with all the revenue that I generated, it would have been nice to have something else. And the gentleman gave me and my sales team of 3 people then £100 each at Christmas. And I just thought, no, this isn't the right business for me any longer. And that's why I moved.
Yeah.
Rolling forward, I could see that the owners of the business in Weymouth were going to sell. I didn't know what that meant. They were making very different business decisions, and I thought that would affect the performance of the business going forward. And some of that was moving out of my remit. And I happened to have a headhunter call me on the right day, and that brought me up to Cambridgeshire, where I then was sales and marketing director for a group of engineering companies again, in a different space. That job taught me even more. I learned even more through that process. It was tough times. It was 2008. We had the economic downturn. The company, I thought, would be turning over about 8 to 10 million. I couldn't get the latest accounts. They hadn't filed them for years. Which is, you go to court these days for that. But then people were getting away with it. When I got there, I found out they had lots of debt. They hadn't paid their pension bill. They hadn't paid their VAT. There was over £250,000 worth of VAT owed. And I just thought, this isn't right. I'm a director of this business. I'm therefore responsible for all of this. And I've walked into a nightmare. The economic downturn then hit when I found that out. And bear in mind, I committed to move up there as well. And with everything we were doing, I had no money to be able to put things straight. And that's the reason the company was in the state it was in. And I thought, how can I don't want to walk away. There's 150 people that work here, and I'm responsible for them as well. But within 6 months of me joining, 6 board members had all left, including the vice chairman. The owner had disappeared off to another country and was incommunicado. So he just left it to the finance director, myself, and the commercial director to try and sort things out. We had to make 35 people redundant, very tough. Not the first time in my life I had to make someone redundant, but before it was only 1 or 2, not 35. And I take on board you're affecting people's lives when you have to do that. It's really not nice for the person doing it. It's even worse for the person being made redundant. But that experience in itself probably ate away at me quite a lot. Not probably, it ate away at me quite a lot. We then cut time. We asked people to work for free, and about 2/3 of the workforce that were left worked for free on a Friday. The directors took 25% pay cut, and we worked for free on a Friday as well. In fact, I was working from 7 in the morning till 10 at night. We were just trying to keep this business going, which we succeeded in. Roll forward a couple of years, it was starting to pick back up again. But it had been really, really pared back. We even sold scrap metal, we sold machines. We did everything we could to keep the business in the right space. We got experts in to look at the finances, and one of them said, you normally find a pot of gold somewhere, but all you've got is a big black hole. We recommend you close the business down. And of course, we couldn't get hold of the owner. We couldn't have any serious discussions. Our only option was to keep it going as long as it was legal. And we succeeded. So once I got to a point, I realized the owner just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm wasting my time. I then decided to set up a training company, sales training, because I had a big sales team and they all needed training. When I joined, we were winning 15% of orders. The company I'd left, we were winning 86% of what we quoted for, and that was hugely different. In the previous company, we were probably anywhere between 75 and 85%. So I knew we were in totally the wrong space. And a quick and easy way to fix it was ringing some customers for orders that we'd lost and asking questions. Dead easy. Within 3 weeks, we had a system in place. And within 3 months, we were winning 80% of what we quoted. And all it was, we were quoting for jobs that we'd never win, which meant that we were late quoting the next job. We had a sales team of 9 people. I just left a company with a sales team of 1. And you think there's just lots of disparity here everywhere within the whole business, just the way it was run. It's not efficient. So once I'd let some business friends know I'd set up this training company, the first 2 CEOs I spoke to said, I don't want you to train anyone. I want you to come in and do the sales. So I was taken on using a term that I wasn't overly familiar with, and that's as an interim. So they pay you as a contractor to work full-time in their business. And that was quite successful, so much so they wanted to offer me a permanent role, which wasn't my goal. I explained that to them. They said they don't let interims work for any longer than I'd already worked in a business. And I said, I don't know what to do. I love working here, love working for you, but I have other commitments. And by then, I expected the contract to end at 6 months. They renewed it, which I didn't expect. someone else on the industrial estate I was working on found out I was in the area, had a chat, and they offered me a contract. So I had that one to fulfill as well. So I then employed a business development manager to then work in that business with me and to do some of the sales role. But there's another story that comes out of that. If you're interested in that next piece, it's up to you.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, business development managers are great. They're people persons. They're great face to face, but in actually getting their foot in the door, they struggled. That's not all of them, but that's definitely the majority. If the lead comes in, i.e. via a website, or somebody telephones in, or somebody gives them the lead, they'll then follow it up, and they're great. But what I found is they were absolutely terrified of picking the phone up and speaking to somebody that might say, no, I'm not interested. And that is quite common. So I ended up doing their telemarketing to get them appointments so they can fulfill their sales. And I was doing that in every spare bit of time that I could muster because I was working for this other company as well. And I wouldn't use the other company's time. They paid for it. It's theirs 100%. So I thought, how else can I do this? I'll employ a telemarketer. I took someone on, proven experience. She was very good, but she'd not worked in the worlds in which we were moving, so she lacked experience. So I trained her. She got even better, and then I became her market researcher because you need to research your market. And I then employed a market researcher, and that's how my business grew to what it is today. So we predominantly do sales and marketing. We got involved in AI to support the business about 6.5 years ago, well before it became the in thing that it is today. Our world adapts and evolves all the time. It's never the same thing every day. So ultimately, what we do as a business, we work as another company's sales team, either to launch a product, to create some new verticals, or to supplement the existing team. In some companies, we are the team.
Okay. Well, can you tell us a bit more about Hayward Miller in the early days and how you managed to grow it?
Yep.
So dive into that. Imagine you're speaking to a young entrepreneur who wants to find out more.
Okay. Try and find a mentor of some kind. Somebody that you don't have to pay because mentors can be really expensive, but just find somebody in business. Somebody once said to me, you can stay on the ground with chickens or soar in the air like eagles. And really, you want to soar with the eagles. So find somebody that's better than you. Find employees that are better than you. Don't think you need to be the best. You don't. You need to manage a business. A lot of people start a business because they're good at something. So somebody might be a good engineer. So they get a machine in a garage and they start making things and they're great at it. But that is just a very small part of the complete puzzle. You have to become an HRX. You have to be a nanny sometimes because people aren't feeling well.
Yeah.
You have to supply plasters. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say this. You do. You will grow a family and you will have to look after that family. It is no different.
Yeah.
I've spoken to other business owners and sometimes you get age doesn't matter, the age of the person, but you will have people that you would consider children. You've got to really look after them. And other people you would consider equals or betters because they're self-sufficient and you can have a decent discussion with them.
Yeah.
So you'll have that in business, but you need all of them.
Sure. In those early days, were you wearing those multiple hats? Were you marketing before you hired anyone? Were you managing? Were you marketing?
Absolutely. 100%. I was doing my own account. That was something I had to learn. I'd seen business accounts. Every board meeting, I went through the accounts. I understood it from that level, but physically doing the bookkeeping, I went on a course to do a bit of bookkeeping and worked on it there. I'm now qualified bookkeeper, so I've since done bookkeeping just so that I would understand even more.
Yeah.
You never stop training. Don't think that's it. There's always something new. So for somebody starting a business, try and get a mentor, build up some cash, create different bank account. Don't put all your money in one space and just think all that money's mine. If you're turning over, I forget what the figure is at the moment. I think it's something like 90,000 a year. You then have to be VAT registered.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people that put the VAT all in the same account and think, oh, I've got all this money, but it's 20% more than they've actually got. So create a bank account called VAT and put all your VAT in there. Create a bank account called Profit, and whatever money you've got in your account at the beginning, put 1.5% of that in your profit account, so it's got some money in it. And then you've got your working capital, your main current account. So that's critical. The reason for this is if you see all your money divided, you will then understand you don't have as much money as you thought you had. The other thing is every single thing you sell, take at least 10% and put it in your profit account. If your company is spiraling down because you're taking profit out, you've got problems and you're not making enough money. Very difficult in the beginning because sometimes you got work, sometimes you haven't. Are you a service-based business or product-based business? And they're two different things again.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of young entrepreneurs don't look at the numbers at all, really, when starting out. But you're saying that's the key thing you should be doing. Yeah. Okay. So at what point did you actually feel comfortable enough to hire someone else? What was like your revenue looking like? And you're like, this is a stage.
I was turning over, I reckon, about 78,000 a year when I took the first person on. I was generating the rest myself. I knew that was going to take pretty much all of the profit out of the business. And that was a commitment from me. But if I manage that person correctly, they should be bringing in more revenue than they cost, and I'm creating a profit from them.
Yeah.
But what I found was if I was working on my own very efficiently, hugely profitable business, as soon as I brought other people in, all of a sudden, not as profitable. The more people you bring in, even less and less and less, and you have to turn over far more. You're also paying people for holidays. You're paying higher national insurance. There's annual wage increases. There's pension that you're paying out for.
Yeah.
And then there's little things, incentives and various other things, bonuses.
Yeah. Imagine you got to stay on top of all the new regulations coming in all the time as well, and changes to legislate. Yeah. So you eventually sort of expanded to starting offering your services to clients abroad and overseas. Is that right?
Yes.
How did you get to that point? How did you level up from having those initial clients to going abroad?
It's quite interesting because at the beginning, we were all engineering based because of my background. So all the people I knew were engineering based people. And I thought we were really good in that market. I didn't see the business expanding out of it. But we then had inquiries just through networking from people. One company was asbestos removal. And I thought, where do we go in this particular market? But the sales, any form of sales, 80% of what you're going to do is a process. So you need to nail down your sales process. The really clever bit's the last 20% of what you do. So if you're looking at selling asbestos, how do the markets flow? Who's a likely target customer? Who are the personas that you're looking for your particular industry? And what you've got to do is look at those aspects and then build up your sales process. So what was your question? Because I think I've got off track here.
No, so it's how did you go about sort of expanding your clients and also getting ones overboard, overseas, sorry, not overboard.
Okay, so that process in place, I thought, okay, how can I build the business more quickly? Because it was mainly word of mouth and networking. I then created a website. I already had one, but we put a lot of effort into the website, into optimizing it, SEO, lots of information, downloadable content. We put a tremendous amount of effort into it. And then we got inquiries from abroad. Now, I thought there's a possibility to grow this even more. How can I do this? So I went to the UK government. I think it was the UKTI at the time. And they are great in selling in other countries, but not selling for other countries in the UK. There's nothing in their process that helps at all. So I thought, okay, I did probably 3 different courses with them, and none of them helped me. So now we advertise ourselves as UK agent. We'll work for anyone around the globe. We've worked Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Jordan, America, Sweden, Switzerland, everywhere. Yeah. So pretty much our customer base, 60% manufacturing, 40% service-based. Of those, 15% are international, but all selling in the UK.
Sure. Amazing. Just before we talk about your work in for transition technologies, I just want to focus in on something that I've read. So you focus on sales, not just leads. So why is that distinction important?
We had a lot of people coming to us and they say, we need you to generate leads for us. And we said, we can do that. But we then were getting a lot of failures, and we were thinking, why is this failing? It shouldn't be failing. So then over a 2.5-year period, we measured a lot of statistics. And out of this came that 48% of the people we handed leads to didn't follow them up or didn't do it in a timely manner. You know, it was more than a couple of weeks before they actually followed the leader. Well, that's not fast enough. You need to do it within 24 hours. We found out that 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So if you're a CNC manufacturing company, that's 5 contacts. If you're a solicitor or surveyor of a business like that, it will be 12. Okay? We worked in the water and utilities market, and they averaged 26 contacts before the sale happened. So you've got to understand your own market. And a contact is a telephone call, an email, a message through social media. If they see a post, if they visit your website, they're contact points because they're building familiarity with your brand. If you've got a good website, somebody comes to that site and then contacts you, they're 4 steps ahead. They've already qualified you. You know they have a need because they're on your website in the first place, and so on.
Sure. I'll let Harrison talk to you about transition technologies because he knows a lot more about AI than I do.
So
yep, sure.
We touched upon it before. You said you're using AI 6 years before it kind of came about.
Yeah.
How do you see AI? I'm assuming you see it as an opportunity, but just talk to us about how this sits with you.
Okay. If AI at the time was a way of doing monotonous tasks repetitively and accurately.
Yeah.
So one of the AIs we've used, because we use various social media platforms, LinkedIn being one of them. We used to have a LinkedIn account for every client that we had, but LinkedIn were getting spammed, especially by China at the time, so they banned all of that. So we lost all of those connections. We were then using our own profile for multiple accounts, which is really messy and confusing. And in the end, that didn't work. We thought, how can we improve? So we now take on our clients' accounts. We manage them for them. But LinkedIn would only let you do a certain number of messages.
Yeah.
So, and those messages, if you did too many in a day, it would ban your account, lock it. And you'd have to prove who you were by sending your passport and various other things off. So we didn't want that for our client. So we thought, how can we do this so that we're not breaking the rules that LinkedIn have laid out, their T's and C's, but still not fall foul of this particular process? So we came across a piece of software that would write the messages in real time. It would make the odd spelling mistake, later on go back and correct it, and then it would send the message off in real time. It was quite surreal. You could watch it being typed out on the screen. And that worked for a while. That was great. So that overcame it. But that was AI based.
Yeah.
We then dealt with another piece of software because we don't need to do that anymore. Software's improved, AI's improved, and we've got other ways and means. So we manage it far better than we were able to at that time. Different platforms. Move forward 4 or 5 years. One of our clients is Transition Technologies, based in Poland. They have about 2,000 people throughout Europe. They have people all around the globe, but the bulk of them are in Europe, and they've been in AI for 10 years. And they really look at data science. So if you imagine you're a retail business, you have lots of different customers, lots of different locations, lots of different warehouses, lots of different products, multiple types of product, like jam. You'll have different manufacturers of jam, let alone different flavors of jam.
Yeah.
And that applies to the rest of the business. So the amount of data is massive. But if you take all of the data that you've collated, and they collate all of it, and then you run it through the right algorithms with AI, you can then start to break down dashboards that give you important information. You might find that you don't sell a certain product on a certain day of the week. So that shelf space is wasted. How can we optimize it? You often sell out on these days of that particular product. So could you optimize the shelf space by removing the other one temporarily and then putting it back? These are extremes. You can tell when product's been stolen, meat's disappearing and it's not going through the tills. So you know it's been stolen, you know when it's being stolen because you're starting to be able to manage that data. You can start looking at cameras. So those are the kinds of things they can do. But Transition Technologies work in wonderful worlds of manufacturing, processes, medical, retail, financial. There's lots of different areas where data is available. And it can be, the science of that data can then be managed by the very clever people that we have. So when it comes to Hayward Miller and the sales side, we have been studying AI anyway, finding out what would be good for us. We know lots of other businesses, small business owners as well that are friends. One of them runs a tech company. He said ChatGPT revolutionized his postings on eBay because he sells pre-owned iPads, iPhones, computers. And he's lots of iPads. You might get the same range of iPads, but it's a different version. It's got a different chip. It's got different memory. It's got a SIM card, you know, all those kinds of processes. He was able to just put in the number, the serial number that's on the iPad, get a full description through ChatGPT, put his posting up, and who when they're buying something that's pre-owned, they want to know absolutely everything, where the scratches are. Yeah. So he'd take photographs of the scratches so people could see everything. Totally revolutionized his business. And that was almost overnight, and he was paying £20 a month for that privilege. Yeah. And it was fast. Before, there was 2 people full-time working on that. Now he was doing it in
a few seconds.
Yeah. Do you accept the sort of apocalyptic narrative that's happening around a lot of the conversations with AI, or do you see it more as an opportunity?
Well, I saw Mustafa Suleiman on a podcast, and he was talking about the future of AI, and he's written a very good book. It's well worth a read. I believe he now is the CEO of a part of Microsoft covering their AI. But he also worked for Google as well. And since watching that, you know, when COVID hit, I thought it was going to be the zombie apocalypse. You just didn't know what was going to happen. You can say that about absolutely everything in life. The world is going to radically change at some point, and it's going to be, that curve's just going to be straight up. How it'll affect us, I don't know. The one thing I do know in business throughout the world is that criminals always find a way. I was talking to the cybercrimes unit in the UK police force, and they were saying that a criminal can work 24/7. We work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that's the difference. You're not all the time protecting your business. You're trying to. You're putting things in place.
Right.
And
I'll give it again.
I'm not sure where I started.
It's all right, just say it all again. We'll edit it all to make it work.
So,
Okay.
do you accept the sort of apocalyptic narrative around AI? Because that comes up a lot in conversation. So, do you accept that?
Yes, I do. I think we need to be cautious of it. I think a bit like COVID could be the zombie apocalypse. AI could be the end of everything. And I'm not talking about AI fighting itself and all the world going into war, although it's a possibility. I think it's more likely to be that criminals will use AI to further their gains until such times as in the end everybody then stops using computers altogether. That is a possibility. I'm not saying that's going to happen. So what we need to do is just be very, very cautious. And I'm talking about government level cautious on how AI is used throughout the world. I think it is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I think the possibilities are endless. It will speed up technology, science for humanity. I was watching a video on YouTube the other day about Imhotep. I think that's in Turkey. I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly. The AI is discovered through the marks on the stones at that site that it was actually a point in time 12,000 years ago. Now, humans just couldn't have sifted through that data to find that, but AI did it. It was set the task to analyze all the data and try and date it. Okay. And it realized the constellation of the stars that all the signs said at that time showed them what time in space that was.
Yeah.
So, and that's just one tiny thing. So you imagine it does that, but it will be coming up, you know, if COVID hit now, would AI find the answer much more quickly? But in the same vein, would AI come up with something that you could no longer recover from? So it could create a weapon.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons.
Well,
so
I suppose that is the nuanced answer. That doesn't do very well on my podcast, but it's probably the right answer. That there will be huge advantages and also serious risks.
We are at the extremes. Either way, it'd be huge advantages, good and bad.
Yeah, sure. What about for a young person starting out? Should they look to adopt AI? Is this something they should be focusing in on?
I think I was in a meeting last week. There were 65 business owners in there, CEOs, managing directors, owners. And the question, one person asked the question in the meeting that should we look at AI? Will it be like Y2K? Nothing really happened. GDPR compliance, it kind of came and went.
Well, the hype curve. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All hype, and then nothing really happens and changes. And I think it will be slow growth, but we have already discovered ways to make our jobs easier and faster. You can't take a human out of the loop. AI is not perfect. But if you don't take up AI in a business and your competitors do, they will have an advantage over you.
Yeah.
And that's the answer to that question. You can answer that one yourself.
So you have, yeah, sure. Well, just to sort of bring the conversation to an end, because I know we kept you longer than we intended due to many technical mishaps and everything, but just can you talk to us about some challenges that you face building your businesses?
Yeah. Biggest challenge is cash flow.
Okay.
I set up a service-based business, so we get paid for hours. We charge a day rate. If we had a business that sold a product, we could sell 100 products over the weekend, and that could bring in revenue, whereas we can't work 100 hours over the weekend. If we lose an hour, we've lost that hour forever. If somebody's off sick, we lose their revenue completely.
Yeah.
So there's lots of downsides to being a service-based business. So that's one thing. But the major thing is cash flow. Always look at your cash flow. Never take your eye off it. Plan 90 days ahead of where your cash is going to be. And like I said, create those 5 bank accounts because you need to keep some profit. You may not pay yourself a wage at the beginning. I've known people pay themselves ridiculous wages. You can't do that. It's all about survival in year one. If you're bringing in the revenue, creating a profit, then by all means, start paying yourself a wage. But there's little ways and means that were there when I started my business on the finances. We used to be able to take £7,500 without paying any tax because we were directors. And that was a dividend that we would take, and we would pay tax on the rest. But the successive governments have changed that. It's now £500 that you can take, and that's nothing in today's world.
Nothing. Yeah.
No. So money. Keep your eye on it.
Okay.
If you were sat across your 20-year-old self and you had to give him one sentence of advice, what would you give him?
Do it now.
Andy, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been really interesting.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Appreciate your
Nice
time.
to meet you
Thanks
both. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.